The 3DS. That was a big one for Pokemon. Of course, you could say that for the majority of Nintendo handhelds, but my point still stands. The 3DS was a platform that the 6th and 7th generations of Pokemon released on, and well, opinions on them are mixed. But when it comes to Pokemon, opinions are always mixed. Pokemon X and Pokemon Y was a series debut on the 3DS, and finally introduced 3D graphics to a main series game, and to be honest, the road from that point has been pretty rocky for Pokemon. But that doesn't mean a lot of people didn't have a lot of fun with the 3DS games. I mean, the series sold 56 million units on that console, which is just an insane number. Personally, I'm a huge fan of the 3DS Pokemon games. I feel like that was when Pokemon was at its best in terms of playing online and being able to trade and battle with my friends. I had a lot of good times with that era, and I thought, what the hell, I should talk about it. But it'd be boring to only review each game, so I thought I'd review, albeit an abridged review, and rank each of these games just for a bit of fun. I get that having an opinion on Pokemon is a very dangerous game to play, but if someone is going to get mad about anything I say, whether they disagree with the ranking or just hate this era of Pokemon, they probably just need to go outside. Anyways, I'm Silas. If you like what you watched today, please subscribe for the betterment of humanity. Intro over and done with, let's review and rank the 3DS era of Pokemon. Alright, so let's begin at the 12th of October 2013. Pokemon X and Y just released, and the excitement for this 3D take on Pokemon was pretty high. Probably the most important part of any new Pokemon game is, the new Pokemon. So let me talk about those. Overall, I'm a sucker for the designs of the Kalos Pokemon. The starters, Fennekin, Chespin, and Froakie, are all really cool, with designs that are some of my favorite in modern Pokemon. Fennekin's line is really nice, and I love Delphox's majestic look. Just really dig the Fire Sage vibe it has. Don't even get me started on Froakie's line. Top tier all the way through.
It's a masterpiece, James. Complete. Comprehensive.
I mean, Greninja is my favorite Pokemon, and I'm a huge fan of Ash Greninja too, but that's anime only, so I can't include this in the context of Pokemon X and Y. Basically, ninjas are cool, and his tongue is a scarf. Chespin, well, he starts off good, but what the hell is this? And this. Yeah, let's just move on. What other Pokemon do I like this gen? The Fletchling line is definitely my favorite starter bird line in the series, and I always end up with a Talonflame in my Kalos team, no matter what. I think the whole evolution line is sick, but I always feel like Talonflame is sort of a downgrade from Fletchinder design-wise. It's just those grey spots it has that sort of irks me in a weird way. Other new Pokemon like Vivillon and Florges have really pretty designs. Pangoro is a badass dark fighting panda, and I don't really feel the need to elaborate on that. Malamar is funny, Clawitzer is badass, the legendaries Xerneas and Yveltal have some of my favorite legendary designs. They're sort of simple, but they contrast each other very well in a way that makes them stand out from one another. Zygarde is, well, he's cool, and he sure is in the game. Now, I could list some more, but I'm not going to talk about all the new Pokemon. Otherwise, we'd be here forever. All I can really say is that Gen 6 did a really good job with having some really slick and cool designs with little complaints from me, except for a few stinkers like Diggersby, for example. I suppose the only downside is that X and Y introduced the smallest amount of new Pokemon in the series, with just 72 new mons to catch, which is a little bare bones compared to other games. So you will see a lot of older Pokemon, but they do pick a lot of my favorites to put in, so that's a plus. Yeah, that wraps it up for Pokemon designs. Someone is probably going to tell me that they stink competitively or whatever, but competitive Pokemon is a waste of time, so moving on. Now it's time to talk about the Kalos region itself. I'll get this right out of the way. This is probably the prettiest Pokemon region in any Pokemon game. Maybe tied with Unova, but like, it looks so damn good. Game Freak really succeeded in creating an environment that sells you on the new 3D graphics. Well, at least in the overworld. They use so many cinematic camera angles to really sell you on the true scale of the locations you're in. I love the detailed and unique floor textures in each city and route, which is definitely something future entries could look back on and learn from. The whole bright atmosphere of the region absolutely plays a significant part in really making X and Y feel like full-blown adventures. Of course, all this is amplified by the music. So I'll just go through some of my favorite Kalos locations and why they're cool. Oh, and I guess I should mention Kalos is based on France, which is probably the only downside here. First up is Shallower City. This is a seaside city, which is great since water looks sexy as hell in the X and Y engine. I really love how the town is formatted with the slopes and straight paths that makes roller skating up and down them really fun. It is a little empty in terms of houses, but that's made up for by the main appeal of this city, the Tower of Mastery. It's just, as you approach the tower and the camera changes to show you the sheer height of it and how it extends into the sea, just helps drive home that Pokemon finally made the transition to 3D with these games. It's got a great design, and the interior once again just lends to its height. I suppose another cool thing about it is that you get your first Megastone at the top of the tower. Summary: the city is fun to ride around, and the tower is big and nice to look at. Next up is the obvious one, Lumiose City. Bro, this place is so big, oh my god. The streets are so wide and surrounded by towering buildings. Never in my life had I seen a city this big in Pokemon. And honestly, I don't think another city in any Pokemon game has managed to recreate that feeling. There's so many shops to discover and visit. All these alleyways to find shortcuts through. Hell, these alleyways become the center point of a cool post-game story and everything. I love the towering buildings with all the advertisements on them to make Kalos feel like a real world. And just that catchy theme song too. If you haven't figured it out, Lumiose is based off Paris. And of course, it has an Eiffel Tower. And it's just so big. Well, yeah, I mean, the Eiffel Tower is big, but you get what I'm trying to say. It's cool that it's in Pokemon. Okay? God, there's so much cool stuff about this city. You can never really get bored of it. It's an endless wonderland, but it's French. So, let's move on to something a bit smaller, Lavere City. Now, this is the home of the fairy type gym, so of course, the city is made to look like somewhere from an old European fairy tale. This is just a really unique vibe from Pokemon, since fairy type was new to these games, so they never needed to make a location like this before. So yeah, it looks really pretty and has some vibey music. The houses look like old medieval cottages, but with a signature fairy tale twist to it. Overall, Lavere City just has a really quaint and homey feeling. Snowbell City. I don't really have to say much for this. It's a relaxing, snow location, great layout, great music, just really chill. Finally, big shoutouts to Victory Road and the Pokemon League. Victory Road basically sums up all the best parts of Kalos with some great scenery, and the Pokemon League just flexes the 3D feature of the 3DS with all these fancy effects and cool things to look at before each Elite Four member. Definitely a great send-off for your Kalos adventure. I think I've made the point that I love Kalos. Game Freak really did a near perfect job with demonstrating the merits of the 3DS with this region, and I honestly don't expect to get a region of this caliber for a long time. Gameplay experience. What's up with that? The most infamous aspect of Pokemon X and Y is how easy they are. Like, bro, you get so much XP. XP for catching Pokemon, trainers were often defeated in 1 to 5 attacks. This was the first generation to have the XP share go across the whole team. It's just so easy in so many ways. The gym leaders are pretty much all pushovers, though you may have a little trouble if you're unprepared for Viola and her Vivian using the move Infestation. Now, what is the reason for Pokemon turning easy on us all of a sudden? You see, kids these days have a lot less patience when it comes to video games, since they play a lot of mobile games with very quick gameplay cycles. Game Freak realized this, and since Pokemon is ultimately targeted at a younger audience, they adjusted the game so that kids wouldn't lose patience whilst playing. Long story short, post-Gen 5 kids are pussies. This definitely is a flaw, but overall, the game is still pretty fun to play through. A lot of that is owed to just how cool the Kalos region is though. What gameplay gimmicks do we have here? X and Y introduced the Mega Evolution mechanic, which is a temporary transformation a Pokemon can achieve during battle if it's paired with the correct keystone. And yeah, it's cool as fuck. We got Mega Lucario, Mega Charizard X, Charizard Y is there too I guess. We even got Mega Mewtwo Y with this awesome design. Just look at that. It's so cool. Mega Mewtwo X is also a thing as well, if you want that. There's Mega Gardevoir, Mega Garchomp, Mega Blaziken. I could go on, but not for too long, because there's only so many Megs, but I could go on. Obviously, it's more than just a design change, as the Pokemon get stat boosts pretty much all around, and in certain cases, their typing can change as well. Mega Evolution is by far the coolest gimmick Pokemon has ever done. I just don't care what anyone has to say about Megas affecting competitive play, because competitive Pokemon is a joke. They also added roller skates. They're cool, and you can go really fast with them. Really fast. Another new gimmick is trainer customization, which was a long needed feature for Pokemon. The ability to change up your outfit is just good fun and helps you stand out online. My main complaint is that male trainer customization is severely limited when compared to female trainer customization, which sucks, but I guess is accurate to real life as well. Alright, let's talk about the best bit. X and Y have the best online system of any Pokemon game. Basically, how it works is that the bottom screen of the DS is occupied by the player search system. This shows you the icons of all your friends who are online, your acquaintances who are online, and then a bunch of random people around the world. By clicking on their icon, you can invite them to battle or trade, no problem at all. It's just so streamlined, and it's great that you can access it at all times instead of having to go to the Pokemon Center anytime you wanted to go online. All you gotta do is connect to the internet when you boot up the game, and you stay connected to the PSS seamlessly. You even get notified if someone is requesting to play with you if you're in the middle of battle, which is neat. If you hit the menu on the PSS, you have options for trading, battling, or accessing the global trading service, all right there in front of you, no matter where you are in the game. On top of all this, X and Y introduces Wonder Trading, which is basically just a lottery where you send off one Pokemon to trade, and you get sent a random Pokemon from a player in return. Wonder Trade is just extremely addicting because there's always a chance you'll get something really cool or rare, or a Zigzagoon, or something really cool or rare. Plus, it's just a great way to add some Pokemon to your team that you may never think of using. So to wrap up gameplay, the game is a little too easy, but still a fun playthrough. Gimmicks like Mega Evolution are sick, and online play is the best it's ever been. Last but not least, what do I think of X and Y's plot and cast of characters? Well, X and Y have a lot of lore. I mean a lot of it. And it's all pretty good lore. Throughout the story, you learn of the Pokemon War, where humans and Pokemon fought alongside each other and caused mass destruction. Then there is AZ who crafted the ultimate weapon to effectively commit mass genocide to end the war. Kinda like Doctor Who. I like how dark it gets with the reveal that AZ sacrificed the life force or infinity energy of many Pokemon just to power his ultimate weapon. It's all just some really different stuff from a Pokemon game with a lot of unique ideas used. Unfortunately, this is all just the flashbacks of the game. Nothing much really happens in the present. Team Flare is really just nothing more than a boring group of thugs with probably the worst gimmick of any evil team in Pokemon. Lysander is a pretty hollow villain with his sole motivation being to reset Kalos with the ultimate weapon from the war so he can restore beauty to the planet. Why is this the method he chose? I don't know, just because I guess, you know? Why not destroy the planet? Make it beautiful if you want, I don't know. As for Xerneas and Yveltal, they just serve as Lysander's intended sacrifice for the ultimate weapon, and that's about it. The plot basically boils down to a bunch of pointless Team Flare meetings, Lysander monologues, a cool part where you stop the weapon with a bunch of cool flashbacks sprinkled in. All in all, it's a pretty lackluster story, and it doesn't really serve as an appropriate method of delivery for all the cool Pokemon history we learned from it. What about the companions? I do not have much to say on these guys. I suppose a standout would be that there's a lot more of them than previous games, but they all just fill an extremely basic character archetype. Shauna is the fashion diva, Trevor is the nerd, Tierno is the artsy guy, and that's all I really have to say on them. Who I do like is Serena or Callum, depending on which trainer you choose. I like them because the character is actually competitive with you, and show genuine frustration when you beat them. Of course they're still respectful of you, but I actually was interested to see where their arc would take them as such a committed trainer. I get that a character like Hop is also competitive, but the difference here is that Callum and Serena aren't annoying as hell. Besides that, there's not too many likable characters. Diantha is a cool champion though, but the bottom line is, the main merit is the lore. But the fact that Kalos is such a good region does make the story more fun to play through at the very least. And that's it for Pokemon X and Y. Overall, I have a mostly positive opinion on it, but yeah, it definitely falters in the story and difficulty balancing, but I'd 100% say it's the best game for a beginner who's trying out Pokemon for the first time. But where do I rank it? Yeah, I was gonna have a tier list, but you know, there's not enough games here to make that work, so I'm just going with a simple number rating. I'd have to say that I put Pokemon X and Y in the number 1 spot on this list because, you know, there's nothing else on this list yet, so it has to take the top spot. It's kind of like the Sonic movie winning the box office in 2020, since there was zero competition. But yeah, let's move on to the competition. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, remakes of Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire on the Game Boy Advance, make up the second half of Generation 6. These games released on the 21st of November 2014, so there was hardly any breathing room between these games and X and Y. Not even time for a Pokemon Z apparently. That aside, let's begin. The Pokemon designs. Yeah, those. Okay, so these games are a mixed bag for me since, you know, the main Pokemon are all Gen 3 designs, which are really hit and miss. You see, in my eyes, Gen 3 was when Pokemon designs sorta stopped being shit, but there's a little bit of hangover from the ugliness of Gen 1 and Gen 2 present in Hoenn. I'll go ahead and start with the strong point. All of the starters are top tier. You cannot go wrong no matter what you pick. Seriously. Torchic starts off as a cute little bird, then evolves into Combuskin like the ninja chicken, but like a brown belt one or something. Torchic finishes as a Blaziken, which is like the black belt ninja. It's an even bigger fire chicken that could probably kick your head clean off your shoulders. Then we got my favorite pick, Trico. He's a nice looking gecko, then he turns into Grovyle, the bigger gecko with some nice cool leaves coming off him looking all slick. Then bam, you have Sceptile, who just looks like he's gonna cut you up in so many different ways that he will manage to run out of ways to skin a cat. Mudkip, he's goofy. Marsh Tomp is goofy too. Swampert will fucking crush you alive, but he's also goofy, so it's okay. Then they got the Mega Evolutions too, which were all bangers, but Sceptile turns into a Grass Dragon type, so you know, don't put him near an Ice-type Pokemon and you should be good. Now that I've said some positive things, let me talk about the stinkers from Gen 3, or Gen 6, you know what I mean. Volbeat, look at this chump. Don't you just want to kick it? The design is dumb and annoying, and like I said, really feels like a hangover from the terrible designs of Gen 1 and 2. Bro, Swallow, whatever you call it, Hariyama, Grumpig, tell me that these don't suck. Who even allowed these? I get that 2002 was a different time, but what the fuck? Spinda, Cradilly, more stinkers. You see what I'm getting at here? There's just so many wasted designs, and I want to punch pretty much all of them. But you see, on the other hand, there's so many banger designs too. You got Milotic and that sexy ass design. Gardevoir with an army of horny Twitter artists behind her. Absol looking kinda edgy but still cool. Walrein is a walrus. Salamence is a big dragon. Mawile is the right kind of funny looking, and Exploud is a monster of some kind. I don't know what the fuck he is, but I like him. As you can tell, most of the designs I like are sleek and stylish, but there are a couple of weird ones I like in there, but they're not ugly weird. They're cool weird, so I vibe with it. What about legendaries? Groudon and Kyogre are nice, but I feel like their designs are a little basic. However, the primal forms definitely make up for this with all the nice glowing effects and flashing lights. Latios and Latias are kind of the opposite. I like their original designs, but their mega forms are so lame in comparison, with that washed out purple color, just ew. Rayquaza and his mega form are cool too. Like I said, my opinion on the Pokemon of this game is extremely mixed, but overall I'd have to say the bad designs definitely outweigh the good, and would definitely have to say that X and Y outrank ORAS in this aspect at the very least. There is a nicer selection of Pokemon from other games in the post-game though. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire take place in the Hoenn region, and I'ma get this out of the way, it's no Kalos. But that's a really unfair comparison anyway, since we're dealing with a remade version of a region constructed on Game Boy Advance hardware. It's obviously gonna be a bit more limited. You won't be seeing any massive cities like Lumiose or anything like that, just a faithful recreation of the Hoenn region you're familiar with. What is nice is that Hoenn is a coastal region and has a really relaxed vibe thanks to that. This region's strength definitely lies in natural scenery rather than man-made scenery. In fact, the sunny atmosphere translates really well into the X and Y engine, and graphically, these games look really good. Better than another remake you may be familiar with. You're always near water, and it's almost always a part of the scenery, which is great since one of the best things about this engine is that water looks very pretty. Always being close to water provides ORAS a unique vibe when compared to some of the more landlocked locations from other Pokemon games. Like I said, it's all in the natural beauty. Mount Chimney towers over you, and when you scale it, you can get some great views. Meteor Falls honestly looks a bit magical, and it's here in particular where the water looks best. Plus, when you have the 3D turned on, it honestly looks so good that you wonder what happened to the 3D aspect of the 3DS anyway. The towns and cities are fine. They're all very quaint. You know, they sure do feel like old Pokemon locations. I don't really feel the need to list a bunch of cities like last time, since none blow me away, but Little Root Town is just nice. Lilycove City is actually quite scenic since it's right on the coast, and I guess Teutopolis City is also cool when you're surrounded by all that ash. I think it's ash. There's a lot of oceanic routes too, and they're fine, but all you really do is surf along them, so I can't say they're amazing or anything, but remember I did say water looks nice, so that is a plus. Overall, Hoenn is just way more restrained because it was made in 2002, but it definitely got done a huge favor in the X and Y engine with some great scenery that can look even sexier at nighttime. But overall, I'll give this one to X and Y as well. Right, what are these games like to play though? Yeah, it's mostly the same as X and Y. ORAS is balanced to be much easier than the original games. Leveling up is really easy, trainers don't pose much of a threat, neither do the evil teams, but overall I'd say it's a tiny bit harder than X and Y. The gym leaders can still give you a decent challenge for like one of their Pokemon, but they're still a mile off from being difficult. I mean, Ruby and Sapphire are classic games, so I suppose it makes sense that the remakes would be a little harder than X and Y, even after you dumb it down from the GBA games. In terms of gameplay pacing, traversing the region is fun, there's basically no areas that are tedious or overstay their welcome. The game is still balanced okay enough to make ORAS pleasant to play through, but these easier battles in Gen 6 really showed the more simple direction Pokemon is taking. In terms of gimmicks, we have the removal of trainer customization for some stupid reason. I guess Game Freak wanted to stay faithful to the designs of the original Ruby and Sapphire trainers. But damn, was this a weird choice. It's definitely not a make or break or anything like that. It sort of just makes you think, why? Mega Evolutions make a return in ORAS with a hefty 18 new Mega Forms. These are all functionally the same as they are in X and Y, but with plenty of new designs. Some honorable mentions being Mega Steelix, Mega Gallade, Mega Audino, and of course, Mega Rayquaza. These are all very cool and powerful new Megas that just makes battling even more sick. Plus, Mega Rayquaza doesn't need a keystone to transform, which means it can hold an item whilst transformed, which is just crazy broken and crazy awesome. Groudon and Kyogre also have new primal reversions, which work the same way as Mega Evolutions, the main difference being the lore surrounding each concept. Now that we've gotten the filler out of the way, let's get to the real deal. Bro, this game has soaring. You can hop onto Latios and Latios back and fly all around the region. Not just selecting a place to fly and watching a loading screen, you have full control as you soar the skies above Hoenn. It's just so cool to finally get this feature, and seeing all the familiar locations from far above kinda makes you feel giddy. There's a whole other world in the sky, with Pokemon to encounter and more importantly, a bunch of legendaries to catch. You see, when soaring, you can catch legendaries like the Weather Trio at certain times of the day, or at different times a Mirage Island will appear that you can land on. These are unique new areas that lead you to a Hooper portal, and that leads to, you guessed it, another legendary. So I mentioned that these legendaries only pop up when you soar at the right time window, which is great since it's a fun way to keep you coming back to these games. Sure, you can spoof the time on your DS, but let's ignore that and hope no Animal Crossing players are watching this video. Let's just move on, okay? Honestly, you guys like Pokemon, so I don't really need to explain to you why soaring is awesome. Obviously, a step forward like this for Pokemon will appear in all the franchise's future games, right? Right? Yeah, so you can sneak up on Pokemon that are rustling in the grass. Not much to say there. I guess you have your little Dex nav to tell you when they pop up. What else? Online, is it any good? Yeah, of course it is. ORAS uses the exact same player search system from X and Y, and I'd expect nothing less. It's the best system. It's just as easy and convenient to access all online features from the bottom of your DS, no matter where you are in the game. One thing I will mention about ORAS is that it's more optimal than X and Y from a trading standpoint when filling up your national Dex. You see, since ORAS has more legendaries than X and Y, when you go on the GTS, you'll have better Pokemon to barter with than you would if you're playing X and Y. So if you do plan on completing a Gen 6 national Dex, I'd say you're better off sticking to ORAS just because it's easier to negotiate for rarer Pokemon. Of course, interconnectivity between ORAS and X and Y is a plus for both of these games. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire's story and characters remain largely unchanged from the original games, except for the fact that the evil teams actually succeed in awakening Groudon or Kyogre's true primal form. I guess they bought colorblind glasses or something. I think what makes ORAS unique is that you face a different evil team depending on what game you pick. In Omega Ruby, you fight Team Magma led by Maxie, who wants to use Groudon's power to boil up the oceans and create more land for mankind to prosper on. In Alpha Sapphire, you have Team Aqua led by Archie. He wants to flood the whole planet with Kyogre so that mankind can reach its so-called full potential in the ocean. Sure, the gimmicks of these teams are very simple. Aqua are pirates and Magma are regular people, I guess. But my favorite part of this is that the opposite team of the game you picked will appear in your playthrough as enemies of the other team, so you get caught up in this conflict between two evil teams, and that's cool to watch. I mean, the goals of these teams sure are a step up from Team Rocket just wanting to do mafia stuff, but besides this, the plot is a little bare bones. The teams summon the legendaries and awaken their ancient primal power, then they realize that the legendaries' powers are beyond their previous calculations to the extent that all life on the planet would be eradicated if the legends weren't stopped. Get fucked, Team Lions. Skip forward a little, you have to stop the legends. You do. The day is saved. Here's one compliment I do have to give. The whole atmosphere as you walk around the nearby towns and see the effects the harsh sunlight or pouring rain is having on the people of Hoenn does provide a really good feeling of tension and urgency. Where ORAS shines the most in my opinion is the Delta episode in the post-game. In this story, an asteroid is heading towards Hoenn, and the scientists at the Hoenn Observatory plan on blasting it with a bunch of infinity energy they managed to harness. I just like this little bit of continuity they have with including the infinity energy concept they introduced in X and Y. I'm assuming you guys know this and skip all the lore keeper Zinnia stuff, but she's very cool. Let's just talk about the finale. You summon Rayquaza, Mega Evolve Rayquaza, hop onto Rayquaza's back and fly into space. You smash apart the asteroid, releasing Deoxys. Then you have a climactic battle against Deoxys way up in the Earth's atmosphere. I mean, bravo to Game Freak for coming up with something this cool. I was hyped up for the whole trip, and honestly, I'm glad they went and added in a mostly brand new piece of story because you'd never catch Game Freak doing that these days. You know, it feels good to compliment Pokemon once in a while. If you're wondering why I didn't talk about characters, well, Steven is nice, and we won't talk about the other ones because they all sort of suck. Okay, where do I rank this game? Well, it's a tough one. Sure, the region isn't as nice as Kalos, and the Pokemon can be really hit or miss, but the story definitely has a lot more engaging moments that are grounded in the present. The Delta episode is sick, but you know, you do have to play through the whole game to get to it. Ultimately, for me, it comes down to longevity. ORAS just has more things to do after the story. The multitude of legends to catch, and the gateways those legends open up for you just makes finishing the National Dex more viable in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire than it is in X and Y. Not to mention all the shiny hunting you can do at Hoopa Portals if you're into that sort of thing. I'm going to have to knock X and Y down from the #1 spot and let Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire take its place. It was close, but ORAS just has that little bit of extra challenge, and overall you're simply going to get more out of these games. Now, let's see how the 7th generation of Pokemon will affect these rankings. Let me ask you a question. Did you ever look at the sky and just wonder, where did the sun come from? Or where did the moon come from? Well, they were actually inspired by the games Pokemon Sun and Moon. There's a fun fact. These games released on the 18th of November 2016, or on the 23rd of November if you live in Europe for some reason. Those extra 5 days were painful. Sun and Moon were the games that ended the so-called Pokemon drought, but in reality it had only been 2 years since ORAS, but I guess that's a long time by Pokemon standards. So yeah, Pokemon Z is dead at this point. I have no clue what the general consensus is on the new Pokemon in Sun and Moon, but I'm not sold on them. The designs are either ugly, lame, or just forgettable, or all three. Now there are some I like, so I'll list those real quick. The starters are solid this gen. We do not speak of their middle evolutions. Mudsdale is a Chad horse and probably the goat of my team. Silvally is slick and just really cool with the Arceus link. Salazzle is funky looking. Lurantis and Serena are very pretty. And the Lycanroc forms are all good looking dogs. I like the legendaries too, but I feel like Solgaleo and Lunala don't stick out as much as other mascots. But hey, anything is better than Zacian and Zamazenta. Okay, the Tapus are really well designed too. Guys, I swear I dislike most of these, okay? Here are some designs I dislike so you have a better idea of what it is that puts me off Alolan Pokemon. Crabominable just looks stupid. They couldn't have messed it up more with the awful mix of purple and white, and just even his shape is terrible. Jupiter and Araquanid are just completely forgettable to me. Shiinotic looks daft and annoying. Bruxish and Trampas sum up my problem with the tropical designs completely. Game Freak seems to think that tropical just means slapping a bunch of colours in Pokemon with seemingly no thought at all. All this does is turn the designs into an eyesore. Wouldn't be caught dead with a Bruxish in my team. There are some solid Alolan forms, but I don't really want to count those, and I think it speaks volumes when most of this gen's best designs are rehashes of older Pokemon designs. So besides a select few good looking mons, it's a no from me for Pokemon Sun and Moon. Alola, you guys ready for something positive? Well then, I'm sorry. Wow, what a region. What a region. Alola is by far the most linear region in Pokemon history. None of the pathways branch, and if they do, the branch almost always leads to a dead end instantly. There's nowhere to explore outside of the beaten path, and those paths themselves are pretty empty. I'd say this is the flaw with having a Pokemon region divided up into 4 islands. If you only have an island's worth of space to map out, you're so much more limited in what directions you can take different pathways, because it'd just be so hard to avoid having all the routes cross over each other and lead you you around in circles. So unfortunately, the only intuitive way to lay out the routes is in the most linear way possible, which is just bloody boring. What I really hate about Alola is how bland it looks. All the textures are just so flat and one tone when compared to the engine used in Gen 6. So many pathways are just a pale beige with some palm trees surrounding it. Even the brighter colours from all the tropical plants look washed out because of how they did the lighting for the harsh sun of Alola. I understand that lots of pathways in Hawaii are natural paths, but they're not just flat colours. Go out into the woods and there will be tree roots crossing over them and stones all over the place. But Game Freak apparently saw that and thought, yes, beige. Another thing that annoys me is how all the towns and cities pretty much feel the same. They all sort of have the same layout with 1 or 2 lanes and all the shops and services laid out in a straight line. Of course, my complaint about textures extends to these locations as well. A positive is that they have cars in the cities. That's big. There are some nice locations. Manly City is memorable because its Eastern influence design helps it stand out from basically anywhere else in Alola. And Manly Garden is actually a lovely looking park with lots of ponds that mix well with the sun in the distance. Mount Lanakila is a good serene location because of how isolated it is, and the snowy and quiet environment is a nice contrast to the rest of Alola, so it's definitely memorable in that regard. I don't really know how else I should say I dislike Alola. It's so boring there's not even much to say about it, even if you're trashing on it. It's not that I'm against an island-based region, but the islands would all need to be much larger in order to make them interesting. Of course, that would be too much for the 3DS. Hell, it can hardly handle Alola as it is. So yeah, a region of islands was just a poor development choice given the hardware they were working with. Alola can sort of be okay in the first playthrough, but it's just not even close to Kalos. When it comes to gameplay, it's pretty much the same shtick as the past 2 games. It's balanced to be very easy. I think you don't exactly need me to elaborate here. Instead, I'll talk about the big difference in the gameplay cycle when it comes to Alola. For these games, Game Freak actually decided to do something different and replace the gyms with island trials. The trials are pretty much just quests given to you by the trial captain. It can be something like clear all of a certain species of Pokemon out of the area, or collect ingredients to make a meal, taking pictures of different Pokemon, or something as simple as a quiz in Pokemon. On paper, this sounds like a cool innovation for Pokemon, but no. The trials are pretty boring actually. They ultimately boil down to you looking around a certain area, finding whatever it is you need to do, then calling it a day. There's really no suspense to the trials. Failure doesn't really seem like an outcome that exists. Never am I sitting there thinking, oh god, I better not mess up this part, I'm going to lose. I'm just indifferent to what I'm doing, and the trials just end up becoming yet another empty time waster in the Alola region. Now, what I do like is a totem Pokemon at the end of each trial. These are super big Pokemon that serve as boss battles. They have crazy high stats, and they can call other Pokemon to their side to help them in battle. What I like the most about these is that some of them have a fair bit of challenge to them. Now, they're not super threatening, but compared to everything else in the 3DS era, they're a force to be reckoned with for sure. Oh, and once you beat all of an island's trials, you fight the Kahuna, who is basically just a gym leader, but like an island leader. You know how I've called Alola boring? I'm gonna do it again because damn, just traversing this region bores the shit out of me. For starters, the first island is pretty much all tutorial and riddled with these slow, unskippable cutscenes that just stop you from exploring any new areas. This problem persists well into the second island, and whilst it gets better later on, the cutscenes do slow things down for pretty much the entire game. Add that to the fact that the routes are long and empty, and you'll be wishing you were doing anything else than playing these games. What are some of the gimmicks in Sun and Moon though? Well, these games introduce Z-moves, which are basically just super moves paired by crystals assigned to each type. Some crystals are specific to certain Pokemon, like the starters for example. Super moves are a pretty simple concept, so there's not much to say, other than the fact that these cutscenes take way too long, on top of all the other cutscenes I mentioned. Another new gimmick is a wild Pokemon can call for help, which sounds like a cool idea, but it just wastes time even more. When help shows up, it's just dragging out the battle for another 2 hits, or it's going to completely prevent you from catching the Pokemon until you knock the other one out. In case you haven't noticed, there's a lot of time wasted in this game. If you're wondering about Mega Evolution, it does appear in this game, but there's no new Mega Forms and you can only gain access to the ability at the end of the game, which just sucks. On top of this, the only way to get Mega Stones is by collecting battle points in the battle tree. It's so annoying that Megas are locked behind this grind wall, and there's pretty much no motivation to even try and unlock them. The battle tree is cool in that a few past characters show up for a battle, but it takes forever to get to them. I don't think anyone looks at the battle tree as fun, and more of just an inconvenience blocking them from getting certain items they want to upgrade their team. I think Game Freak used this as a way to phase out Mega Evolution, which is fucking stupid since it's the coolest thing Pokemon has ever done. HMs are gone, which I guess is an upgrade, but I never had an issue with them personally. The replacement is called Poke Ride, that lets you travel on a ride Pokemon. You can ride a Tauros at high speeds, surf on a Lapras or Sharpedo, fly places with Charizard, things like that. Honestly, this feature is fine except for Tauros Ride, which is almost too big for the routes, which makes maneuvering them awkward and clunky. Just something else to add to why the routes are miserable. But let's move on to the real problem, online. Remember how I said the player search system was perfect? Okay, they got rid of it. Now, to get online, you have to go into the menu, click on the Festival Plaza button, wait until it connects to the internet, wait until the Festival Plaza loads, then open up the Plaza menu, and then you finally have access to your online options. But only after sitting through a Plaza tutorial first. Game Freak's idea with the Plaza was a place where trainers can meet up and customize for other people to see, which is fine, but why tie battling and trading to it? Why not have the Plaza be a separate option and keep the PSS? I don't know, Game Freak can be really stupid sometimes. Well, maybe all the time these days, but The amount of time it takes from being in-game to getting to the online options is so much longer than Gen 6 for no good reason. It almost feels insulting as you sit there and think back to the beauty and efficiency of the PSS. Yeah, I have a lot of problems with the gameplay experience too. You're beginning to see a pattern here. From what I said about the multitude of cutscenes, the plot of Sun and Moon is paced pretty poorly, but there are some cool parts to it, so I'll take some time to talk through what I actually like. Team Skull is a really unique and vibrant team, with Game Freak deciding to tone down the evil team to simple thugs. They just have way more personality than Team Flare, and their leader, Guzma, is just a pretty funny guy. My favorite thing about them is that they're basically just a front for the Aether Foundation to make it look like they're saving Pokemon and hide away their tamperings with Ultra Space. That's another nice thing about Sun and Moon. Ultra Space is pretty sick. The fact that there's another species of creatures that aren't even Pokemon living in the space between dimensions is really interesting. Of course, once you catch an Ultra Beast, it does mostly function the same way as a Pokemon, but from a lore point of view, I fully welcome the concept and I hope other games factor in Ultra Beast to the story. But Game Freak really hates continuing any new concept they come up with, so I doubt they'll do this. What distinguishes Ultra Beast lore from something like the Pokemon War in X and Y is that all the information is revealed to us through something actually happening in the present, whether it be the Ultra Wormholes opening, unleashing the Ultra Beast onto Alola, or seeing the Tapus of each island appear and team up with the Kahunas to defend the region, or even going into Ultra Space itself to confront Lusamine. All of these events allow us to piece together the history of Ultra Beasts in Alola without making us watch too many flashbacks. When Sun and Moon came down to the action, they did a pretty good job. What about Lusamine, who I mentioned before? She's cool. I like how her motivations are completely selfish, and that she's not trying to force some sort of ideology onto the world. She's simply obsessed with getting to Ultra Space after her husband vanished into one of the Ultra Wormholes years ago. I like how personal this is to Lusamine, and you end up getting a little bit of sympathy for her. On top of that, I like seeing the family drama between her, Gladion, and Lily, as it builds an attachment to those characters as well. Watching Lily break free from her mother's manipulation was a great character arc to watch. The one thing in the finale that bugs me is that when Lusamine merges with Nihilego, it feels like you're gonna get to have a Totem-style battle against Lusamine herself. But even though she is literally fused with an Ultra Beast, you just fight against her regular old Pokemon team, which was a pretty big anticlimax. Outside of the characters I already mentioned, there's a few others who are just sort of nice people. Professor Kukui has a lot of charisma, and it was a nice twist when he turned out to be the champion. The Kahunas are just okay, same with the trial captains, but Nanu is definitely a cooler Kahuna and more interesting than the rest of his peers. Besides that, there's not really anyone of note, because Hao is just the worst. If I were to say one final positive thing about the plot, it'd have to be the ending. Game Freak left Lusamine's fate uncertain as Lily leaves Alola with her to try find a cure for Nihilego's toxins. So, we never know how it really turns out for those two, which is a lot more interesting than giving us a typical boring happy ending. Now for the ranking. Well, you just heard me rag on this game almost non-stop. The only thing it has over the other two games is a more interesting plot, but the amount of stuff you have to wade through to get to the good parts is infuriating. Just think of everything in Gen 6. The gameplay cycle, the different gimmicks, the online, then downgrade all of those, and hey presto, you have Pokemon Sun and Moon. So yeah, bottom of the list. What about Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon? I'll keep this a little more brief than the other games. At its core, Ultra Sun and Moon is the same game as Sun and Moon with some changes. A compliment I can give it is that they actually bumped up the difficulty a fair bit, and if you're not careful, some of the battles can give you a run for your money. They're still not quite as hard as older games, but the difficulty spike is definitely appreciated. There's some new mini games like Mantine Surf, which allows you to ride a tidal wave to get to the next island. You can perform surfing tricks to try beat your high score. This is sort of fun, but there's no reason to do this more than once, as flying between islands is just much faster. Besides that, most of the changes come at the end, with Necrozma consuming Solgaleo and Lunala and venturing into Ultra Megalopolis, where Necrozma dwells. The main highlight here is how hard the Ultra Necrozma fight is compared to anything else in the 3DS era. You also get to ride through Ultra Space and venture into different habitats dedicated to either Ultra Beasts or a large selection of legendary Pokemon, which is always nice to have. There's also Team Rainbow Rocket, which is just a bunch of fan service. All these additions are definitely a bonus, and the only complaint I really have is that the interruptions in your exploration last even longer, as Ultra researchers tend to show up after and challenge you to an extra battle and drag things out just that little bit more. Trust me when I say the last thing Alola needs is more interruptions. Where would I put Ultra Sun and Moon on the list? Well, it's just Sun and Moon with more stuff in it, so overall, you're better off playing Ultra Sun and Moon. So I'll put it in spot number 3 and push Sun and Moon down to spot number 4. Well, we have our final rankings. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire at number 1, X and Y in an honourable 2nd place. Ultra Sun and Moon take bronze, and it looks like Sun and Moon are having an eclipse at the bottom of the list at number 4. We got a lot of Pokemon content out of the 3DS, and honestly, my only big regret about this era is that Pokemon Z was never made. Sure, the 7th gen was a rough one, but it doesn't mean I don't have some good memories, and I really just love Gen 6. That's about all I have to say. If you made it this far, please subscribe. I plan on making more Pokemon content in the future, so you can watch that. Leave a like, comment your thoughts on the 3DS era, and yeah, watch the rest of my stuff too. That's it for me. I'll see you in the next video.